I quite often think about the people who live in warmer climes and how it must be really nice to have a cool workshop. But mine it's a bit frosty this morning, as you can see. Out in the garden you can see a touch of white on the trees and on the ground here. The workshop's unheated, apart from a 500 watt small heater. So let's go in. Okay, well, what I've got in the table of the machine, or on the table of the machine today, is this cylinder block, which is for a BSA engine. It's been partially machined, and unfortunately the cylinder block that is to go with the engine that I've got, or the one that I'm building up and machining to go with this, had a different footprint on here. So the person who owns it has got quite a few bits and pieces of space, and he bought along another cylinder, which is this one here, which actually fits that profile. And unfortunately there's no liners in that, so I've got to bore this out to 4 thou less than that liner size and get the liner in. So what I'm going to do is I've generated my own G-code program to run my vertex boring head, which I made an adapter for to fit in the machine. I like using this because it's a really nice, accurate piece of work. It's lovely to use, nice and easy to set, and you've got real control over the depth of cut and the size of the hole. And I've also figured out at long last how to use my bore gauges. I have a full set of these up to 8 inches in diameter from ½ inch. A beautifully made instrument, very expensive in their day. Mine came out of the Royal Aircraft Establishment, the RAE, made by a company called Matrix, which is, I believe, Coventry Gauge and Die Company. And very accurate. 2/10 of a thou is the division on here. Each one of those divisions there, the large divisions, is 1 thou. They've got a quite limited working range. What threw me was when you use these, I keep thinking like a micrometer, you open it out for the larger size. It's not, it's the opposite way. The larger this is, the further out those, further in the anvil pushes to push these out against the bore. So obviously you have to push this rod in rather than pull it out for measurement. So I've now got some idea of what I'm doing with it. So hopefully we'll be able to get good, accurate bore measurements with it. Okay, well, there's the machine switched on. I haven't got any coolant on. I'll maybe put some on later as I get nearer on the side. I just want to see if the program works okay. I've got my Maxwell cut down to virtually nothing. The idea behind the program is it's just simple. G85 is the command. Basically it's a standard sort of boring program, in that the head will come down, the tool should stop just outside the bottom of the cylinder, and then come back up at feed rate and stop at the safe height. When it stops at the safe height, I can put a cut on and then press a button to run the program again. So that way I can just keep on doing that until I get the size that I want. So let's just slowly move on down. There we go, -2 inches, -1.4, looks like it's going okay. Feed rates are conservative, and there we are. That's it, just coming down to that's one of the stops out of the boring head. Never mind, at least it didn't do any harm. I've got the guard off here. There's not much to go wrong with this other than the head hitting that. Now there's a thing, will it clear that? 2.2 inches to go? Yeah, it will. Okay, well, you guessed right. This was actually striking this clamp here. Plenty of room to move that one. This one, I think there should be enough room there. I think it had at the time 0.2 of an inch to go. Anyway, I'm going to have a look, see. I'm going to run the program and see if it does clear that when it gets down to its final position. Well, that's it, checked for collision and it's fine, so I'll let it come back out. It should stop. I'll put a cut on and I will try again. Well, there we go. It's, just had another cut put on it. It's just touching at the top for whatever reason, I don't know. It's just at the very mouth, and then it's not all the way around either. It's maybe a little bit of bruising of the metal casting around the top there. Well, I was beginning to have doubts about whether everything was okay with this, because it's cutting only on this side at the top. However, I've just ran my DTI inside on my centre finder and run it round here, and it's to within half a thou of concentricity halfway down the bore, so I'm quite happy. Well, I got a lot of chatter before, so I've cut the speed down. You can hear that. I'm not happy with that at all. I've sharpened the tool up. That seems a bit better now. At least it's showing signs of cutting properly. That's better. I wasn't very happy with it. Yeah, that's good. Pleased with that. You can see there's a tremendous amount of chatter mark at the top. Well, there we are, still boring out this cylinder. I've cut the RPM down dramatically because I got a lot of chatter. I built up a real heavy chatter pattern, and the only way around it was just to cut the cut the RPM right back. That got the chatter under control, and I increased the feed by about a third by effectively, well, reducing the RPM but also reducing the feed, but not quite as much, so relatively speaking it's taken a bigger cut. The cylinder itself must have been bored with a tremendous taper on it, because I've put a lot of cuts on and it's still not all the way through clean to bottom. You can just hear the cutter starting to come up, and it's just taking a full bite now, and that's an inch off bottom. Well, not quite, about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of that cylinder. So it was machined with a taper somehow. Well, I'm using the same program that I wrote up for doing the bore of the cylinder to do the counter bore in the top, and basically I'm going to keep this as a kind of wizard, because all I need to do in the G code is alter the start Z and end Z, and the rest of it's down to manual input at the head here, and I do tend to use the head quite a bit, so it's worth keeping as a program. So I mean, basically I'll just put another cut on here. 1, 2, seems like an awful lot, but it's quite a fine feed on that. So here we go, click the start button. A little bit the be all and end all for cutting aluminium or alloys. And you see it starts at a safe height of 1/4 of an inch. And there we are. And it stops at a safe height of 1/4 of an inch. Nice, simple. It took me less than a minute to change the data, and I was up and running with it. So it's really good. Well worth having as a kind of thing for this, especially with the in and out passes. I find that you know, when you're using these as a boring bar, there's quite a lot of spring. Even in this, which is quite a stout bar, there's definitely some spring there. Anyway, I'll get to and measure and finish this counterbore. That's the liner spigot finished. As you can see, the sole purpose of this here is to stop the liner being driven down through the cylinder block in the event of it coming loose within the casting. And also the way I believe this engine is designed, the cylinder head seals against this upper face. Now what I've done is I've made that slightly proud. When that cylinder, this is it upside down obviously, there's a small amount of stick up here which I can at a later date either machine or for, it depends on how the head fits, but leave enough room so you can grind everything down or face it off so that it seals nicely on a gasket. So, or as may be against a bare head possibly. I'm not really sure what the arrangement was on this engine. I'll have to look at the drawings that I've got and see what it tells me. I made this a few thou larger because it's not a rattling fit, but just in case there's any lack of concentricity between this and here and here, it will take it up. The last thing you want to be doing is when you've got the liner in a red, really hot barrel casting, and this cooled down, to find it doesn't quite go down, and then you have to start forcing it, and that's when you hit troubles with liners. So anyway, on to the next one, which basically I've got both my programs set up for. I've just got to carry on and do. Just started the second bore. Very similar to the first one. It's been machined with a taper in it and not very round. I don't know what happened to this casting. Maybe it was rejected for some reason. For a start off, I think it was drilled. I think it was machined upside down initially because the counterbore is actually in the bottom of the cylinder. There's room for it there. It looks as though they attempted to machine it the wrong way around. But anyway, hopefully all fits in the end. Should be okay. You can hear it's just finishing the taper off. You can see it down there, how tapered it is, and not very true. And here we're still cutting the second bore. Well, there's the other cylinder done. So that's both of these cylinders ready to have liners pressed in. I will probably do that at the next session in the workshop. Now whether I can film it or not is a different story because you've got to work quick. What I intend to do is to make up a little disc washer with some rubber on and a hole in the centre of it. Just one moment. I'll fill it up with water and cold water so that at least it will stay cold. One of the problems you have with these being so thin, they conduct heat so rapidly, whereas if that's full of water, I think I daresn't freeze it because that would expand it, but nice cold water in there, as long as you've got a vent pipe, even if it heats up, it can vent itself out the top. So that's what I might try and get those in there quickly, but I'll see how it goes. They don't actually go in that way. Well, they do go in that way as you see, but there's 4 thou of interference there, so that should be good enough once it's hot to shrink it in. We will see. I'll let you see the end result. I'm not going to try filming the process, but here we are in the back of the workshop here in the dirty end where I do my welding and hot work. The oven's on. I've got the cylinder block in the oven. It's about 230 degrees. I've made a plate to go over the bottom, one to go on the top. Plenty of waterproof washers, so I'll just keep those plugs in loose, and hopefully the little bit of expansion that I expect to take place from the water warming up as it goes in will be taken up by the air gap underneath these 2 screws.